Maya Chen walked through the halls of the Galactic Naval Academy with her head held high, even though every alien she passed stared at her like she was some kind of strange animal. The station's artificial gravity felt too light for her Earth-trained muscles, making each step feel like a small bounce. She had learned to control it after 6 months here, but the other cadets still whispered about how clumsy humans looked when they walked. The Academy was the most important military school in known space. Only the best young beings from each species could attend. The Krillians sent their strongest warriors, the Vex Collective chose their smartest minds, and the Zephyrians picked their fastest pilots. Earth had sent Maya, and she was not even sure why. 3 years ago, humanity had made first contact with the galactic community. Earth was labeled as a protected primitive world, which meant other species saw humans as children who needed watching over. Most aliens thought humans were too weak and stupid to be dangerous. The Academy had accepted Maya as a political gesture, a way to show they were kind to lesser species. Maya's dormitory room was smaller than the others because humans needed less space, or so the Academy believed. Her roommate was a Krillian named Thex, who had skin like gray stone and stood 8 feet tall. Thex was polite but treated Maya like a pet that might break if handled roughly. "Human Maya," Thex would say in his deep voice, "you should rest more. Your species requires much sleep, yes?" Maya never corrected him. Let them think humans were weak. Let them think humans needed protection. She had learned more about galactic military tactics in 6 months than most species learned in years, simply because no one bothered to hide anything from the harmless human girl. In combat training, Maya was always placed in the back where she would be safe. Her alien classmates had natural armor, enhanced speed, or telepathic abilities that made them perfect soldiers. Maya had soft skin that could be cut by sharp edges, bones that could break under pressure, and no special powers except the ability to think quickly and adapt to new situations. The training master, a 4-armed Zentaurian named Commander Cole, often used Maya as an example of what not to do. "See how the human panics under pressure," he would say during tactical simulations. "See how she makes emotional decisions instead of logical ones. This is why primitive species must be protected from real combat." But Maya was not panicking. She was learning. Every time her squad failed a mission because she was too weak, she studied the recordings afterward. She watched how each alien species fought, how they thought, and most importantly, how they failed. The Academy's computers contained detailed files on every student, information that was supposed to be secret. Maya had discovered that the Academy's security was designed to keep out alien hackers, not human ones. Humans thought differently about computers and codes. Where alien minds saw patterns and logic, human brains saw possibilities and creative solutions. Maya had spent her late nights in the computer lab, not studying for tests, but learning how to access files she was not supposed to see. She knew that Cadet Vorthak of the Krillian Empire had failed 3 classes because he was too proud to ask for help. She knew that the Vex student Nexus 7 had been programmed with faulty social protocols that made it trust others too easily. She knew that Wing Commander Sill of the Zephyrians was afraid of enclosed spaces because of a childhood accident. The Academy staff thought Maya was struggling with the advanced technology. In reality, she was reverse engineering their entire system. Human brains were built for pattern recognition and problem solving. On Earth, humans had survived by being smarter than stronger predators, by working together when others worked alone, and by never giving up even when things looked hopeless. Maya's favorite time was late evening, after most aliens had gone to their rest cycles. Different species needed different amounts of sleep and different types of rest. Maya would tell everyone she was going to study in the computer lab, which was true, just not in the way they thought. The lab was filled with quantum computers that could process information faster than any human mind. But human minds could ask questions that quantum computers never thought to ask. While the machines calculated probability and efficiency, Maya wondered about the people who programmed them. What did they fear? What did they want? How could their own systems be used against them? Tonight was different from other nights. Maya had finally broken through the Academy's deepest security levels. She was looking at files that contained personal information about every cadet, every teacher, and every staff member. Medical records, family histories, psychological profiles, and most interesting of all, classified military intelligence about each species' weaknesses. The Krillians, for all their strength and honor, had rigid thinking patterns that made them predictable in battle. The Vex Collective shared information through networked minds, but this made them vulnerable if the network was disrupted. The Zephyrians were fast and smart, but they panicked when separated from their flocks. Humans, according to the files, were listed as unpredictable variables with high adaptation potential and concerning creative problem-solving abilities. Someone in Galactic Intelligence was worried about humanity, even if the Academy treated them like harmless children. Maya smiled as she read her own psychological profile. The Academy's doctors had noted her unusual stress resistance and atypical response patterns under pressure. They thought these were signs of primitive emotional control. They did not understand that humans had evolved these traits by surviving on a planet that tried to kill them every single day for millions of years. As Maya worked deeper into the system, she found something that made her blood run cold. There was a classified communication from the Krillian Black Legion, their most elite military unit. The message was simple and direct. The human variable must be eliminated before contamination spreads. Authorization granted for immediate action. Maya looked at the timestamp. The message was sent 3 hours ago. The Academy's security system showed 6 unregistered life forms had entered the station 20 minutes ago. They were already here, and they were coming for her. Maya's hands stopped moving over the keyboard. 6 unregistered life forms on a station that scanned everything coming and going meant only one thing: professionals who knew how to avoid detection. The Krillian Black Legion was not sending regular soldiers. They were sending their best killers. She quickly copied the files she had been reading onto a hidden partition in the computer system. If something happened to her tonight, at least there would be evidence of what the Academy really thought about humans. Maya had learned to always have a backup plan, something her alien classmates never seemed to consider. The computer lab was deep inside the Academy, surrounded by layers of corridors and security doors. To reach her, the operatives would have to pass through multiple checkpoints without triggering alarms. Maya wondered how they had managed to get this far without being detected. Then she realized the terrible truth. Someone inside the Academy was helping them. Maya stood up and walked to the lab's main control panel. The room was designed for students to practice with advanced computer systems, which meant it had access to many of the Academy's networks. She began typing commands that would give her control over the station's internal sensors and environmental systems. The Academy's designers had never imagined that someone would try to use the computer lab as a command center. The security protocols were focused on keeping students from accessing dangerous military secrets, not from controlling basic station functions like lighting and air circulation. Maya pulled up the internal sensor network and began searching for the 6 intruders. The station's sensors were designed to track registered personnel, but Maya modified the search parameters to look for movement patterns that did not match the database of known residents. It took her several minutes, but she found them. 6 figures in advanced stealth suits were moving through the Academy's service tunnels. They were heading directly toward the computer lab, which meant they knew exactly where she was. Maya felt a chill run down her spine as she realized that her late-night study sessions had not been as secret as she thought. The lead figure was larger than the others, probably a Krillian commander. The other 5 moved with the precise coordination of soldiers who had worked together for years. They carried weapons that Maya did not recognize, probably experimental technology that was not supposed to exist according to galactic treaties. Maya had maybe 10 minutes before they reached the lab. She could try to run, but where would she go? The Academy was a closed station in deep space. Even if she could reach the communication center to call for help, who would believe that Krillian special forces were trying to kill a human cadet? And why would they help her when most aliens thought humans were barely worth protecting? Instead of running, Maya decided to do what humans did best when trapped. She prepared to fight back in ways her enemies would never expect. Maya began by changing the station's environmental settings. She lowered the temperature in the service tunnels by 15 degrees and increased the humidity to maximum. Krillians were used to hot, dry climates, and the sudden change would make them uncomfortable and slow their movements. She also began to slowly reduce the oxygen levels in the tunnels while increasing them in the computer lab. Humans could function with less oxygen than most species because Earth's atmosphere had trained them to be efficient with their breathing. Next, Maya accessed the Academy's maintenance systems. The computer lab was surrounded by a network of service conduits that carried power, data, and life support throughout the station. Maya began to reroute these systems, creating new pathways that only she knew about. If the operatives managed to trap her in the lab, she would have secret ways to move through the station. Maya also started downloading every piece of classified information she could find onto portable data cores. If she died tonight, at least she could make sure some of the Academy's secrets died with her. She found files about experimental weapons, classified alien physiology data, and detailed plans for future military operations. Information that could change the balance of power in the galaxy if it fell into the wrong hands. As Maya worked, she thought about something her grandfather had told her before she left Earth. He had been a soldier in humanity's last global war, and he had fought against enemies who had better weapons and more soldiers. Maya, he had said, when someone stronger comes to hurt you, do not try to be stronger. Be smarter. Be more creative. Use their strength against them. Maya pulled up the station's security protocols and began to study them carefully. The Academy's security was designed to protect against external threats and to keep students from accessing dangerous areas. But Maya was already inside, and she had administrative access to systems that the designers never expected a student to control. She began to prepare traps throughout the station using the Academy's own safety systems. Emergency blast doors could be triggered to separate the operatives from each other. Fire suppression systems could fill corridors with foam that would slow down anyone trying to move quickly. Even the artificial gravity could be adjusted to make certain areas harder to navigate. Maya also accessed the personal files of every Black Legion operative she could identify. Krillian military records were detailed and included psychological profiles, medical information, and family histories. Maya began to build a picture of each operative's strengths and weaknesses. She learned which ones were veterans of difficult campaigns and which ones had never faced an enemy who fought back with tactics they did not understand. The leader was named Thaktor, a decorated commander who had led successful operations against rebel groups throughout Krillian space. He was used to enemies who fought with honor and followed predictable military tactics. His psychological profile noted that he became frustrated when faced with dishonorable combat techniques. Maya smiled as she read this. Humans had never had the luxury of fighting with honor. On Earth, survival meant using every advantage available, no matter how unfair it seemed to the enemy. Maya began to plan ways to frustrate and confuse the Krillian commander, ways that would make him angry and careless. The sensors showed that the operatives had reached the final corridor before the computer lab. Maya saved her work and began to shut down the room's main lighting. She would face them in darkness, using the emergency lights and computer screens to create shadows and confusion. The lab's complex layout of servers and workstations would become a maze that only she knew how to navigate. Maya picked up a metal tool from one of the workstations and tested its weight in her hand. It was not much of a weapon, but humans had learned to make weapons out of anything available. She thought about her ancestors who had fought off predators with nothing but stones and sticks. Tonight, she would show the galaxy what those same survival instincts could do when combined with advanced technology and creative thinking. The door to the computer lab began to glow as someone on the other side started cutting through the metal with a high-energy torch. Maya took a deep breath and prepared to demonstrate why humans had earned their place among the stars. The metal door of the computer lab glowed bright orange as the cutting torch worked through it. Maya crouched behind a server rack in the back corner of the room, watching the sparks fall to the floor. The Krillian operatives were being careful, cutting a small opening instead of blasting through the entire door. They expected to find a frightened student hiding under a desk, not someone who had spent the last hour turning the entire station into a weapon. The cutting stopped, and Maya heard the soft sound of metal hitting the floor. Through the hole in the door, she could see the faint outline of armored figures moving in the corridor. They were using hand signals to coordinate their entry, professional soldiers who had done this many times before. The first operative came through the opening with his weapon raised, scanning the room with enhanced vision gear. Maya had turned off the main lights, but she knew the Krillians could see in darkness better than humans. What they could not see was the thin wire Maya had stretched across the floor, connected to the room's fire suppression system. The operative's foot caught the wire, and instantly the room filled with thick foam designed to put out electrical fires. The Krillian cursed in his own language as the foam covered his vision gear and made his weapon slippery. Maya used the distraction to move to a different hiding spot, staying low and quiet as more operatives entered the room. "Spread out," said a deep voice that Maya recognized as Commander Thaktor from his vocal patterns in the military files. "The human is small and weak. Do not let her escape through the door." Maya almost laughed. They were thinking like Krillians, assuming she would try to run away from the fight. Humans had learned long ago that sometimes the best escape was to go through the enemy, not around them. The second operative was moving toward Maya's original hiding spot when she triggered another trap. The server rack he was passing began to spark and smoke as Maya overloaded its power systems from her portable control device. The Krillian jumped back, thinking the equipment was exploding, and Maya used his moment of distraction to slip behind him. Maya had studied Krillian anatomy in the Academy's medical files. Their thick gray skin was like armor, but they had weak spots at the joints and neck. More importantly, they were used to fighting enemies who attacked from the front with honor and courage. Maya attacked from behind with a metal pipe she had taken from the maintenance shaft, striking at the nerve cluster behind the operative's knee. The Krillian went down with a surprised grunt, not because the blow was particularly strong, but because he had never expected to be attacked in such a way. Maya was already moving before he hit the ground, using the maze of equipment in the lab to stay out of sight. "Contact rear!" shouted the fallen operative, but Maya had anticipated this. She triggered the lab's communication jamming system, filling the room with electronic interference that made it impossible for the operatives to coordinate through their helmet radios. Commander Thaktor roared in frustration. "Fight with honor, human! Face us like a warrior!" Maya did not answer. She was too busy rewiring the lab's electrical systems to create her next surprise. Humans had learned to use electricity as a tool thousands of years before they met other species. While aliens had developed energy weapons and force fields, humans had learned to be creative with simple electrical current. The third operative was moving carefully through the server racks when Maya completed her wiring. She sent a power surge through the metal floor, not enough to kill, but enough to cause the Krillian's armor to conduct electricity directly to his body. He collapsed, his muscles twitching as the current disrupted his nervous system. "Two down," Maya whispered to herself. 4 to go, including the commander. But the operatives were adapting. They began moving in pairs, watching each other's backs and checking for traps before advancing. Maya realized that her element of surprise was fading. She needed to change tactics. Maya accessed the lab's ventilation system through her control device and began pumping a mixture of gases into the room. Not poison. She was not trying to kill them with chemicals, but a combination of nitrogen and carbon dioxide that would make the Krillians feel drowsy and confused. Humans could function longer in low oxygen environments because their brains were more efficient at using available oxygen. The fourth operative stumbled as the gas mixture began to affect him. Maya was ready. She had climbed onto one of the server racks and dropped down onto the Krillian's shoulders, using her full body weight to drive him to the ground. The impact stunned him long enough for Maya to use a neural disruptor she had improvised from lab equipment. Commander Thaktor was getting angry. Maya could hear it in his breathing, which was becoming faster and more aggressive. Krillian psychology files noted that their species became less effective when frustrated because their honor-based thinking made it hard for them to adapt to unexpected tactics. "You fight like a coward," Thaktor growled. "No honor, no courage. This is why your species will never be worthy of respect." Maya felt a flash of anger at his words, but she used that emotion to fuel her focus rather than make her careless. Humans had survived by being practical, not honorable. When faced with predators that were bigger and stronger, early humans had used persistence hunting, wearing down their prey over long distances. When faced with enemies who had better weapons, humans had used guerrilla tactics and psychological warfare. The fifth operative was trying to corner Maya by herding her toward a dead end in the lab. But Maya had spent hours studying the room's layout and had prepared for this situation. She triggered a pre-positioned explosive charge, not a real bomb, but an overloaded power cell that created a loud bang and bright flash. While the Krillian was blinded and deafened, Maya escaped through a maintenance hatch that led to the crawl spaces behind the walls. Now she was in her element. The maintenance tunnels were too small for the large Krillians to follow easily, but they were perfect for a human-sized person who was not afraid of tight spaces. Maya began to use the tunnels to move around the lab, appearing and disappearing like a ghost. She struck at the remaining operatives from unexpected angles, using the walls and ceiling to attack from directions they could not defend. A human's flexible joints and smaller size became advantages in the confined space, while the Krillians' strength and armor became disadvantages that made them slow and clumsy. The sixth operative made a mistake when he tried to follow Maya into the tunnels. The space was too tight for his armor, and he got stuck halfway through a shaft. Maya disabled him with a nerve strike to the neck, a technique she had learned from studying pressure points in alien anatomy files. Now it was just Maya and Commander Thaktor alone in the computer lab. The commander was standing in the center of the room, turning slowly as he tried to figure out where she would appear next. His weapon was ready, but he had no clear target. "I understand now," Thaktor said, his voice filled with a mixture of respect and fear. "Your species did not reach the stars despite being weak. You reach the stars because you are not weak at all. You are something far more dangerous." Maya emerged from behind a server rack, no longer hiding. She was breathing hard and had several cuts from crawling through the sharp-edged maintenance tunnels, but her eyes were bright with determination. "You came here to eliminate the human variable," Maya said, her voice steady despite her exhaustion. "But you never understood what that variable really was. It was not our weakness that worried your intelligence services. It was our ability to turn any situation into a weapon." Commander Thaktor raised his weapon, a plasma rifle that could burn through metal and stone. At this close range, Maya's human reflexes would not be fast enough to dodge the energy beam. But Maya had not survived this long by relying on speed or strength. She had survived by thinking ahead. "Your weapon uses a standard Krillian power cell," Maya said calmly, not moving from where she stood. I have been monitoring the station's electromagnetic patterns for the last hour. Your rifle has enough energy for maybe 3 more shots before it needs to recharge. Thaktor's eyes narrowed behind his helmet's visor. He had not expected the human to know about his weapon's limitations. 3 shots are more than enough to kill one small human. Maya smiled, and something about that smile made the hardened warrior take a step backward. You are thinking like a Krillian again. You assume I will give you 3 clear shots. Maya pressed a button on her control device, and the computer lab plunged into complete darkness. She had shut down even the emergency lighting, leaving only the faint glow from computer displays scattered around the room. Thaktor activated his helmet's night vision, but Maya had expected this. She triggered another electromagnetic pulse. This one focused specifically on the frequencies that Krillian military equipment used. Thaktor's night vision flickered and died, leaving him as blind as Maya in the darkness. But Maya had spent the last hour memorizing the exact layout of every obstacle in the room, while Thaktor was operating in unfamiliar territory. The commander fired his first shot at where he thought Maya had been standing. The plasma beam lit up the room for a brief moment, but Maya was no longer there. She had dropped to the floor and rolled behind a workstation, using the brief illumination to confirm her position relative to the room's layout. Humans evolved as persistence hunters, Maya said, her voice coming from a different direction than where Thaktor had fired. We did not chase our prey by being faster or stronger. We chased them by being smarter and more patient. We followed them until they made mistakes. Thaktor spun toward the sound of her voice and fired his second shot, but Maya had already moved again. The plasma beam struck a server rack, sending sparks flying and creating brief shadows that confused the commander's vision even more. Maya was using psychological warfare now, something that humans had perfected over thousands of years of conflict. She knew from Thaktor's military files that he had never faced an enemy who deliberately tried to get inside his mind. Krillian warfare was based on direct confrontation between honorable warriors, not on the kind of mental games that humans had developed to survive against superior predators. Your species has rules for combat, Maya continued, moving silently through the darkness. Honor, courage, direct confrontation, but my species learned to survive without rules. When something bigger and stronger wanted to kill us, we became unpredictable. We became creative. We became willing to do whatever it took to live another day. Thaktor fired his third and final shot at the sound of her voice. But again, Maya had anticipated this. She had thrown a piece of metal to create noise while she moved to a completely different position. The commander's weapon was now empty, and Maya could hear him fumbling for a backup power cell. Maya struck while he was reloading. She did not attack him directly, which he would have been prepared for. Instead, she tackled his legs, using her full body weight and the element of surprise to knock the massive Krillian off balance. As he fell, Maya grabbed his weapon and rolled away into the darkness. Thaktor crashed to the floor with a sound like falling stones. His armor was designed to protect him from energy weapons and projectiles, but it made him slow and clumsy in close-quarters combat. Maya had used his own equipment against him, turning his advantages into weaknesses. Impossible, Thaktor growled as he struggled to get back to his feet. You are just a student, a primitive from a backward planet. Maya's voice came from behind him now, and he could hear her doing something with his captured weapon. That is the mistake your intelligence services made. They saw that humans have no natural armor, no enhanced strength, no telepathic abilities. They concluded that we were weak, but they missed the most important thing about my species. Maya had figured out how to reactivate the plasma rifle's power systems. She was not planning to shoot Thaktor with it, but she wanted him to know that she could if she chose to. The weapon's charging cycle created a distinctive humming sound that every Krillian warrior would recognize. What did they miss? Thaktor asked, and Maya could hear genuine curiosity in his voice despite their deadly situation. They missed the fact that humans became the dominant species on Earth, not because we were the strongest or the fastest, but because we were the most adaptable. Every other species on our planet was better than us at something specific, but humans were good enough at everything to survive when the environment changed. Maya began moving again, using the weapon's humming to mask the sound of her footsteps. She was positioning herself for the final phase of her plan. When the climate changed and the forests disappeared, we learned to hunt on open grasslands. When the ice ages came, we learned to make fire and build shelters. When predators evolved better teeth and claws, we learned to make tools and work together. We never stopped adapting, and we never stopped learning from our enemies. Thaktor was beginning to understand what he was truly facing. This was not a weak human child playing soldier. This was a representative of a species that had clawed its way to the top of the food chain on one of the most dangerous planets in known space. Earth was a world where the weather could kill, where predators hunted in packs, and where survival required constant innovation and adaptation. Your Black Legion made another mistake, Maya said, and now her voice was coming from above. She had climbed onto the server racks and was speaking from the ceiling. You assume that because humans look weak, we think like prey animals. But we do not. We think like predators who learn to hunt things bigger and stronger than ourselves. Maya dropped from the ceiling, but not to attack Thaktor directly. Instead, she landed on the computer console that controlled the lab's artificial gravity. She had been studying the station's technical manuals for months, and she knew exactly which systems controlled the room's gravitational field. The gravity in the lab suddenly increased to 3 times normal Earth gravity. Maya had been born and raised in Earth's heavy gravitational field, so the increase was uncomfortable but manageable for her. But Thaktor, despite his strength and armor, came from a planet with lighter gravity. The sudden increase in weight made his armor feel like it was crushing him into the floor. "This is why your intelligence services wanted to eliminate the human variable," Maya said as she watched the commander struggle against the crushing weight. "Not because we are weak, but because we represent chaos in your ordered universe. We are the species that does not follow the rules, that cannot be predicted or controlled." Thaktor tried to speak, but the increased gravity made it hard for him to breathe. Maya reduced the gravitational field slightly, enough to keep him pinned, but not enough to kill him. She had neutralized the threat without taking a life, which was the most human solution of all. "The Academy will find 6 Krillian operatives who were killed in a training accident," Maya said as she began to plan her next moves. "Equipment malfunction during unauthorized exercises. Very sad, very tragic, and very believable, because it is exactly the kind of mistake that happens when soldiers become overconfident about their superiority." Maya stood in the destroyed computer lab, surrounded by the unconscious forms of 6 Krillian Black Legion operatives. The room looked like a war zone, with damaged equipment, scorch marks from plasma fire, and the lingering smell of electrical burns. In 3 hours, the Academy's morning shift would begin, and someone would discover what had happened here. Maya had won the fight, but now she faced an even more dangerous challenge. How do you explain 6 dead Krillian Special Forces operatives in an Academy computer lab without starting an interstellar incident? Maya had studied enough human history to know that sometimes the cover-up was more important than the victory itself. She began by checking each operative to make sure they were truly neutralized. Commander Thaktor was still pinned under the increased gravity, conscious but unable to move. The others were unconscious from various forms of non-lethal takedown. Maya felt a moment of satisfaction that she had managed to defeat them without actually killing anyone, which would make her next task much easier. Maya returned to the computer terminal and began the most complex hack of her life. She needed to rewrite history itself, creating a false narrative that would explain the presence of 6 Krillian operatives and their subsequent defeat without revealing that a human cadet had been responsible. First, Maya accessed the Academy's external communication logs. She created a series of fake messages showing that the Krillian High Command had requested permission to conduct a classified training exercise at the Academy. The messages were carefully crafted to look authentic, using proper military codes and communication protocols that she had learned from studying intercepted Krillian transmissions. Maya made sure the fake authorization came from a Krillian general who was currently off-world and unreachable for confirmation. By the time anyone could verify the orders, Maya would have finished her cover-up and destroyed the evidence of her hacking. Next, she modified the Academy's sensor logs to show that the operatives had arrived through official channels rather than sneaking aboard. Maya created false records of their ship docking at the station's military berth and their weapons being cleared through security as training equipment. To anyone investigating later, it would look like everything had been properly authorized. The hardest part was explaining what had gone wrong with the training exercise. Maya needed a plausible reason for 6 elite operatives to be found unconscious in a computer lab. She spent an hour studying the technical specifications of Krillian training equipment before she found her answer. Maya created evidence of an experimental neural training system that the Krillians had been testing. The fake records showed that the device was designed to simulate combat scenarios directly in the user's mind, allowing soldiers to experience realistic battles without actual danger. But according to Maya's fabricated reports, the system had a critical flaw in its safety protocols. Maya modified the Academy's environmental sensors to show electromagnetic readings consistent with a neural trainer malfunction. She created fake technical reports explaining how the device had created a feedback loop that overwhelmed the operatives' nervous systems, leaving them unconscious. The computer lab's damaged equipment would serve as evidence of the electromagnetic surge. To make the story more believable, Maya planted evidence that the operatives had been working without proper Academy supervision. She created communication logs showing that they had insisted on conducting their training exercise in secret to test security protocols. This would explain why no Academy staff knew about the exercise and why the operatives had been found alone. Maya also needed to explain her own presence in the lab. She modified her personal schedule to show that she had been assigned to work on a late-night programming project by one of her instructors. According to the new records, she had been in the lab when the malfunction occurred and had been knocked unconscious by the electromagnetic pulse. When Academy security found the scene, it would look like she had been an innocent victim rather than the person responsible. The most delicate part of the cover-up was dealing with the classified information Maya had accessed during her months of hacking. She could not simply delete the files, because that would leave traces that security experts might eventually discover. Instead, Maya created a sophisticated program that would gradually corrupt the files over the next several weeks, making it look like natural data degradation rather than deliberate sabotage. Maya paid special attention to her own psychological profile and the intelligence assessment that labeled humans as unpredictable variables. She modified these files to make them seem less threatening, changing the language from concerning to interesting and removing references to human creative problem-solving abilities. As Maya worked, she thought about what this night had revealed about humanity's place in the galactic community. The alien species that considered humans primitive had completely misunderstood what made humans dangerous. It was not strength or speed or natural weapons. It was the ability to adapt, to think creatively under pressure, and to turn any situation into an advantage. Maya finished her digital alterations just as Commander Thaktor began to regain consciousness under the reduced gravity. She knelt beside him and spoke quietly, knowing that his suit's recording systems had been disabled by her electromagnetic pulses. "You came here to eliminate the human variable," Maya said. But you cannot eliminate something you do not understand. Humanity's greatest strength is not our technology or our weapons. It is our ability to survive and adapt no matter what the universe throws at us. Thaktor's eyes focused on Maya's face, and she could see a mixture of respect and fear in his gaze. "What will you do now, human?" Maya smiled. "I will go back to being an average cadet who struggles with her classes and cannot keep up with her alien classmates. The Academy will continue to think that humans are harmless primitives who need protection, and your Black Legion will report that the human variable has been eliminated because they will never know that their operatives failed." Maya activated a neural disruptor that would erase the last few hours from Thaktor's memory. When he woke up, he would remember arriving at the Academy for a training exercise, but nothing after that. The official report would conclude that all 6 operatives had been affected by the neural trainer malfunction. Maya planted the neural training device among the damaged equipment and activated its self-destruct sequence. The device would be completely destroyed, leaving only fragments that would support her story about a malfunction. She also triggered a small fire that would destroy any remaining evidence of her hacking, while making the scene look more consistent with an equipment failure. Finally, Maya used the lab's emergency communication system to report the incident to Academy security. She made her voice sound panicked and confused, like a student who had been caught in an accident she did not understand. "This is Cadet Chen in Computer Lab 7, she said, adding just the right amount of tremor to her voice. "There has been some kind of explosion. I think there are injured people here. Please send help immediately." Maya positioned herself near the lab's entrance and used a small electrical charge to render herself unconscious. When Academy security arrived, they would find her collapsed near the door, apparently having been trying to escape when she was overcome by the effects of the electromagnetic pulse. 3 hours later, Maya woke up in the Academy's medical bay. A Zentorian doctor was scanning her with medical equipment while Academy officials stood nearby taking notes. Through the window, she could see several official-looking spacecraft arriving at the station, probably investigators sent by both the Academy and the Krillian High Command. "Cadet Chen," said Academy Director Cole Thane, a distinguished Vex who had run the institution for over 30 years. "Can you tell us what happened in the computer lab?" Maya put on her best confused student expression. "I was working on my programming assignment when there was a bright flash and a loud noise. The next thing I remember is waking up here. Is everyone okay? I thought I saw some people in armor in the lab, but everything happened so fast." Director Cole Thane exchanged glances with the other officials. "There were 6 Krillian operatives conducting a classified training exercise. Unfortunately, there was a malfunction with their equipment. They are all alive, but will need extensive medical treatment." Over the next few days, Maya watched as the investigation unfolded exactly as she had planned. The official report concluded that experimental Krillian training equipment had malfunctioned due to inadequate safety protocols. The Academy implemented new regulations for off-world military exercises, and the Krillian High Command issued a formal apology for not properly coordinating with Academy security. Maya returned to her regular classes, where she continued to struggle with combat simulations and receive condescending advice from her alien classmates. Her instructors still treated her like a primitive human who needed protection from the dangers of the galaxy. But late at night, when Maya was alone in her dormitory room, she would sometimes access the hidden partition where she had stored copies of the Academy's most sensitive files. She now possessed intelligence that could shift the balance of power between species, detailed information about alien weaknesses and military capabilities that no human was supposed to have. Maya had proven that humans could be more dangerous than any alien species had imagined, not because they were stronger or faster, but because they could think their way out of impossible situations and turn their enemies' own strengths against them. The galaxy still saw humans as harmless primitives, and Maya was content to let them continue thinking that way. Sometimes the best weapon was the one that nobody knew existed, and humanity's greatest weapon was not their technology or their military might. It was their ability to be consistently underestimated by everyone else.